champions in that division. You got Scott Quinn, Carl Frampton, Guillermo Rigondeaux.
I'm gonna get the opportunity, boy. You working your ass off, don't you?
Hey, that's what we do. That's what we do.
There's Boxing Nation. I see it, baby. Y'all the man.
That's what it is.
I love it. I love what you're doing for boxing.
Thank you, man.
Don't stop. Keep on going strong. Keep on going hard. A lot of big fights coming this year. A lot of big fights.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know, sometime when I watch HBO boxing, I feel like I'm stuck in some kind of documentary based on the 40s or the 50s. I mean, the type of biased rhetoric that exists on HBO right now is unbelievable. There is a level of professionalism that you are supposed to maintain. And I believe Showtime has it. The commentators in the UK, they definitely have it. I mean, pretty much everyone else is on that professionalism boat, except for HBO. And we know who the leader of the gang is. That is Jim Lampley. Because that is exactly what they are. They are a gang, and that's how they are acting. Trying to gangbang on Showtime, gangbang on Floyd Mayweather, and anyone else who was on the coincidental list. I mean, when I was listening to Jim Lampley and then later on listening to Max Kellerman interview Canelo Alvarez, in which he was talking more about Mayweather Pacquiao than he was actually talking about Canelo's performance, man, I felt like this was the East Coast, West Coast beef. You feel me? I mean, Tupac, Suge Knight versus Puff Daddy and Bad Boy. That's how it felt. When I heard Max Kellerman constantly saying, you know, how does it feel to have an exciting fight? And before that, Max Kellerman talking about, you know, if the fight last week put you to sleep. You know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of Suge Knight and Bad Boy when they were at the, Source Awards, I think it was. And then Suge Knight, he went up there and he was like, look, y'all, if you don't want nobody singing all on your albums, talking all on your songs, come over to Death Row. You know, he said something like that, but you guys remember. That's what I felt I was listening to when I heard Max Kellerman interviewing Canelo Alvarez. Because everything he was saying was an indirect diss to Floyd Mayweather. It's funny how all of a sudden now they're saying the fight was extremely boring and it put you to sleep. But yet, if you watch the fight, you'll notice there was no booze. There was no booze throughout the whole fight. And matter of fact, every single time Manny Pacquiao threw a barrage of punches, the crowd went crazy, right? When Floyd Mayweather caught Pacquiao with some right hands, you heard the oohs, you heard the ahs. There was no one booing in this fight. But now all of a sudden, because once again, the guy that won who wasn't supposed to win, now since he won, it's a boring fight, it put you to sleep, and all this kind of stuff. Which all this stuff I'm saying, when it comes to if the fight was boring or not, this is completely irrelevant, and we all know it. We all know this, right? Like I always tell people, when you win the Super Bowl, when you win the gold medal in the Olympics, no one is talking about how boring it was, right? In soccer, they could be playing for 2-3 hours and only 1 point is scored. And guess what? The team that wins, the fans are going crazy, jumping up and down for that 1 point that they scored. And you know why? Because they won. And winning proves that they were better than that other team. Their country is better than that other country, right? That's all that matters, is that they were considered the winners. It is like this in every single sport. And it's like this in boxing too. It's been like this since day one until extreme, radical, blow-by-blow commentators like Jim Lampley entered the game. And notice, I mainly say Jim Lampley and not Max Kellerman because to me, Max Kellerman is a puppet. Max Kellerman is just trying to please his mentor. He looks up to Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant, right? He's trying to please them. And this is how he tries to please Jim Lampley. Max Kellerman interviews Canelo Alvarez. And man, I have never seen anything like this. From the first question Max Kellerman asked Canelo Alvarez, he's trying to get Canelo Alvarez to basically talk bad about the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight and compare his performance to what they did last weekend. Max starts off by saying, how does it feel to put on an exciting type of performance like that? Canelo Alvarez just thanks the fans. Then Max comes back and he says, but you really like this style of fighting, right? Canelo comes back and he gives James Kirkland props. Then Max tries to dig deeper by saying, you prefer a fight like this compared to a Lara fight where there's not that much action, right? Once again, Canelo Alvarez, he responds in a respectful way, just giving props to his opponent, James Kirkland, saying that James Kirkland was tough, we were both exhausted, etc., etc., etc. So now Max Kellerman, he's been trying to allude to the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight throughout the entire interview. He just finally says, forget it. And he just comes straight out and says, Canelo, Mayweather and Pacquiao didn't produce the type of fireworks that people were expecting, that you feel you could come out and produce those fireworks. Once again, Canelo did not give Max Kellerman the answer that he was seeking. Canelo says to Max Kellerman, I don't worry about those fighters. I only worry about myself. That's pretty much what he said, right? So the whole thing is, while Max Kellerman is trying his best to diss Mayweather, in a certain way, Canelo Alvarez is actually respecting Mayweather's victory over Pacquiao. That's pretty much how I read it. Now, since Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman, the whole team pretty much, they kept trying to compare Mayweather versus Pacquiao to Canelo versus James Kirkland. Let's just talk about this for a second. Like I just said in my previous video, first of all, how do you try to compare Canelo Alvarez fighting against James Kirkland to Mayweather fighting against Manny Pacquiao? Are you serious? You're talking about pound for pound, number one, the best fighter of our era, fighting against what a lot of people believe was top 10 pound for pound, Manny Pacquiao. And you're going to compare Manny Pacquiao as an opponent to James Kirkland, a guy who just came off of a year layoff, has a terrible defense as we've seen, has no chin. Every time you touch his chin, he either staggers, gets knocked down, or gets knocked out. He's not top 10 pound for pound. He's not even top 20 pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the world. How do you compare apples and oranges? It doesn't make sense. That's like comparing Floyd Mayweather's performance against Artur Gatti to Canelo Alvarez's performance against Erislandy Lara. That's pretty much the same type of comparison, right? I mean, obviously, if you put Floyd Mayweather in the ring with a guy who doesn't have the best chin and has no defense at all, flat-footed, comes forward, chin first, Mayweather would have a dominant performance as well. It's a ridiculous comparison. But once again, this really has nothing to do with what is boring and what is not. This basically comes down to HBO's Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman being sore losers, just like Manny Pacquiao. That's what this really comes down to. If Manny Pacquiao would have pulled off the upset and became the first man to beat pound for pound king Floyd Mayweather, just to see his hand being raised and the look on Floyd Mayweather's face as he finds out that he has just been defeated. Are you fans going to honestly tell me you would have said that fight was boring and it didn't live up to the expectations? Come on, man. Let's be honest for a second. Let's speak the whole truth for just a second. Even if you're going to just speak the whole truth in your heart, because we know you're not going to post the whole truth. But let's just be honest for a second. You know good and damn well that fight could have been the most boring fight in history. If Floyd Mayweather would have got beat, that's all you would have cared about. And I know this for a fact because, back in the day when I used to throw a lot of fight parties, I remember when I hosted the Mayweather versus Cotto fight. And at the time, we were training at a gym that was pro Pacquiao, basically, right? So they all came over here to watch the fight, filled up my house, and of course Mayweather, he dominates Miguel Cotto. But when Michael Buffer announces the winner, he says, "and new." When he said that, my whole house erupted in cheers, everybody jumping up and down because they thought that that meant Miguel Cotto beat Floyd Mayweather, right? Now, even though they know that Floyd Mayweather clearly won the fight, they were happy just to see Floyd Mayweather lose, right? And it's the same thing with Mayweather versus anyone. You don't care how boring the fight is. You just want to see him lose. This goes back to my soccer reference. You don't care how many points they score. You don't care how many goals there are. As long as your country wins, that is all that matters, right? So the truth of the matter is, this has nothing to do with excitement, entertainment, action-packed fights. This is a simple case of who Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman like and who they don't like. I mean, think about it for a second. Jim Lampley has a list because he doesn't like the fighters that are on top of the pound for pound list. This man makes up his own list because Jim Lampley's way of thinking basically is, if we can't beat these bastards, then we simply just change the rules. That's it. Not find a guy that can beat him. No. He acknowledges he can't find anyone to beat him. So change the rules. The people that are considered the best fighters in the world, forget that list. I'm going to make a list of fighters that don't have to be the best. Fighters that can lose as often as they want. And they're going to be the fighters that we feel are more significant, right? This is what this man did. This man created a list that he calls the Gatti list, that is obviously based on the late Arturo Gatti, who was a brawler, who was a good fighter, but he wasn't a great fighter, right? He wasn't Magic Johnson. You could say he was kind of more like Kurt Rambis, okay? I mean, don't get me wrong. Arturo Gatti, he won some titles, and, he did some stuff in the sport, but you can't compare him to the greats. Now, what's so funny about Jim Lampley calling this the Gatti list and praising Arturo Gatti is Floyd Mayweather knocked out Arturo Gatti. So it's ridiculous that you make a list and you base the list on Arturo Gatti, but yet you don't even put Floyd Mayweather on the list and he knocked out Arturo Gatti. Now, if that's not comedy, I don't know what is. Then, of course, they open up the show rebroadcasting the Mayweather versus Pacquiao fight. So, of course, like I said earlier, Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman, they're still fired up over that fight. Now, what's so crazy is, unfortunately, when you are on the coincidental list, the more successful you are, the more hated you are. If you notice, guys, there hasn't been this much hate towards Floyd Mayweather since he beat Manny Pacquiao. Even though Floyd Mayweather came into this fight not bragging, not boasting, he looked completely focused. He showed a lot of respect towards Manny Pacquiao, never disrespected, even though Freddie Roach was calling Floyd all types of stuff, saying that this was good versus evil. Floyd Mayweather never had anything negative to say about Freddie Roach or Manny Pacquiao. And yet he goes in this fight, he defeats Manny Pacquiao, and for some reason, he elicits the most hate that he has ever endured. I mean, how does that work? You know, it's crazy, and I'll try to add the link in the description box. But what's so funny about this, or what's so crazy about this, I should probably say, is when Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya, this was the same type of hate that he received. In a video that I'll try to add in the description box that I did long time ago on my old channel, I have a clip in that video where Larry Merchant and Jim Lampley, they basically invited Floyd Mayweather to the studio to talk about the De La Hoya fight after he beat De La Hoya. And man, these guys, Jim and Larry, they completely disrespected Floyd Mayweather right in his face, telling Floyd Mayweather that the world wants to see more fighters like Oscar De La Hoya, and they felt that it was still a win for Oscar De La Hoya. They just completely disrespected this man Floyd right in his face. This is the same type of disrespect that we are seeing from this Manny Pacquiao fight as well. Floyd Mayweather was not supposed to win this fight. Manny Pacquiao was supposed to be the guy that Floyd Mayweather was afraid of. Floyd would never fight, and if they did fight, he would knock out Floyd Mayweather. That's not what happened, and because people are so emotionally attached in this sport, they can't accept defeat. Instead of just being gracious, showing class, and saying, you know what, I don't like Mayweather, but you got to get that man his props. He's good at what he does. Instead of them doing that, they have to make tons of excuses and try to blame and say the fight didn't produce the fireworks, which what they really mean is Manny Pacquiao didn't win the fight, so now we're upset. And now to add insult to injury, HBO's Max Kellerman is trying to basically stand up for Manny Pacquiao when it comes to his shoulder injury, and they're trying to basically say it's a legitimate injury, even though Bob Arum had already said that this is the same injury that Manny Pacquiao has had since 2008. Now, what's so crazy about HBO defending Manny Pacquiao when it comes to this injury is when Tim Bradley had his injury, and we actually seen him injured in the fight. We seen him start to fight different. We seen, after he broke his ankle, he wasn't bouncing as much. He was walking around. He was actually hobbling around in the ring. We seen this in the fight, so we know that Tim Bradley was injured. Matter of fact, we even seen a replay of when he injured his ankle, right? But did Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman defend Tim Bradley for his injuries? I mean, they didn't even bring it up. They didn't even address it because to them, it didn't make a difference. They had their mind made up that Manny Pacquiao won. They didn't care if Tim Bradley was injured or not. But now when it comes to Manny Pacquiao, they're going to try to do everything they can to try to convince people, oh yeah, he was injured. And then Max Kellerman said something really crazy before this Canelo fight. He said people shouldn't be blaming this shoulder injury on Manny Pacquiao. They should be blaming this on the Nevada State Athletic Commission for not allowing Manny Pacquiao to take an injection shot before the fight. Can you believe that? So now this is not even Manny Pacquiao's fault? It's the commission's fault? Are you serious? Teddy Atlas, a man who actually picked Manny Pacquiao to win this fight, he said he believes that Manny Pacquiao showed a lack of heart and determination in this fight. He said he's seen Manny Pacquiao throwing that right hand hard over and over throughout the fight. Teddy Atlas doesn't believe that Manny Pacquiao was injured at all. And quite frankly, guys, if you watch the fight, once again, there was never a time in this fight where they put an ice pack on Manny Pacquiao's shoulder or he winced in pain. Never did we see anything like that. We seen him throw hard right hand after hard right hand the whole night, right? We also seen him raise his hands in victory over and over at the end of the fight. On top of all of this, Roger Mayweather told me that Floyd told him before the fight that his hand was hurt. So Floyd Mayweather, he was injured. And he still put on a dominant performance. Teddy Atlas also said, even if Manny Pacquiao did have an injured shoulder, his shoulder bone is not connected to his leg bone, meaning he could use his legs, he could still apply pressure. And he didn't do that. His whole story is suspect. It makes no sense. It doesn't add up. And this is the reason why Manny Pacquiao continues to sink in quicksand. Because he continues to change his story. Like I told you guys in a previous video, Andre Ward had the exact same tear in his shoulder that Manny Pacquiao has. And Andre Ward, he won the entire Super 6 tournament with that tear. Okay? Now, what's so funny about Manny making these excuses and these hypocritical ass fans actually defending him and saying, yeah, well, if he said he was injured, and, this and that. They're defending him because he said that he was injured, even though he's changed the story. But what about when Floyd Mayweather fought Castillo the first time? Floyd Mayweather, he said he had an injury. But people don't talk about that, right? The same fans that defend Manny Pacquiao, and they claim they believe he does have an injury, and it did affect his performance. These are the same people that will turn around and say, well, Floyd, he lost to Castillo. They don't even care about the injury. They don't care about the injury when it comes to Floyd Mayweather. But when it comes to Manny Pacquiao, oh yeah, if he said he has an injury, then he has an injury. It doesn't matter if he changed the story. Right? Okay, sure. Well, I think I've been rambling off for a while. I'm going to go ahead and go to sleep right now. So that's pretty much all I got for now. I'll be talking more about this in the future. I'm on to the next one.